Welcome to the Digital Runway. This is your front row seat to the future of beauty, fashion, tech, and AI. I'm Janey Park, a former global beauty fashion executive turned founder of this media network advisory. We produce live shows, a strategic newsletter, moved to Substack, so it's been very busy. A growing library of industry case studies, interviews, and innovation playbooks. And I'm very excited to have someone that I met back in New York in February of this year. We were just talking earlier before we went live that it literally feels like it's been a year or something like that. But first and foremost, let me just say welcome to Maia. Welcome to the Digital Runway.
Thank you so much for having me today. This is super exciting.
And Maia said that it was her first time joining a podcast. So make sure to drop her a comment. And we're going to be going through some of her work, obviously, but also checking out some of the process and perspective in terms of wearable robotics. So, just so you guys have an idea, today's episode, we're going to be breaking down how robotics is reshaping fashion from the inside out and what it means for the future of design, tech, and human experience. And just quickly, Maia, I'm going to give you your flowers and a quick intro. She is a Venezuelan, which I think is very important to give you flowers for your culture and representing that, mechanical engineer, research assistant at the this is a mouthful, Human Augmentation in Physical and Perceptual Interactions Lab, an incoming PhD student at Cornell University. She's passionate about creating garments that connect with people, enhance human experience, and inspire women to pursue careers in STEM. Did I miss anything, Maia?
Did not. Everything was on point.
Yeah. What do you call that at Cornell? There was the HAPPI lab.
Yeah,
What's that?
we literally just took the first letter of everything and it's the Happy Lab and the logo even has a smiley face on it. We
Oh,
embraced it.
oh, that's so funny. It feels very different, right? Because you're talking about robots and maybe not emotion, but then you guys are going in this direction. But yeah, we're going to get started. Anyone who is joining live or if you're catching the playback, drop your questions in the chat, share with anyone who you think should learn from this conversation because honestly, even as I was preparing for this interview and I was telling Maia I wanted her to fact check certain things because I'm not the expert when it comes to robotics. And I'm really excited because Substack, which I'm actually moving to in this process, we're going to drop some subscriber only content, which we'll start filming actually after the interview. But before we get into it, we're going to get into a segment that is called Digital Decoded. It's more about warming up, and there's definitions for the non engineers like myself and having Maia to explain them. So I'm going to toss out a few tech terms. And if you can give us a quick definition that normal people who are not engineers can understand. Are you ready, Maia?
I'm ready.
Okay, number one, let's keep it easy, simple, ease our way into it, but robotics. How do you define robotics?
So actually, this is, I think, one of the most challenging words to define because it's still very much debated amongst roboticists. But for me, robotics is any system that involves sensors, actuators, some kind of movement, systems that can be pre-programmed to accomplish something. For me, that's what robotics is.
You know what? That was actually a very simple definition that I'm sure myself and a lot of people can understand. So I appreciate that. The next one, we're going to ease in a little bit more, which is wearable robotics or sort of the fashion robotics that you create.
So wearable robotics is actually based on the definition of robotics. It's just that it's robotics on a human. That's basically what wearable is. So it's what I said before, but for to be worn on a human body.
Okay, I love it. You're keeping it very easy for us non-engineers that we could
Yes.
follow and honestly not feel stupid because we don't understand the definition. But we're going to step it up a notch with haptics and haptic technology. How do you explain that?
So actually, haptics is a very old field and it comes from neuroscience and it's anything related to touch. So if it has to do with touch, it's considered part of the haptics field and it actually comes from Greek. It's called haptikos and it literally translates to related to touch. That's the very simple definition of the word. Yes, it's Greek.
Because when you said haptico, I was like, oh, that kind of sounds Spanish actually.
No.
And then the last definition, just very quickly, is human augmentation. It feels like some Black Mirror type of thing, but then I was looking through the way that you describe yourself in your bio and some of your work. It was something that kept on popping up, and I was like, I think I did my research, DYOR for anyone in like the Web3 blockchain crypto tech space, but let's hear from the source.
So actually, I feel like the word that makes it complicated is augmentation, but human augmentation is just enhancing human abilities or experience. It can be anything physical, cognitive, sensory. So touch goes inside of the sensory part. And that's why I'm working in haptics and human augmentation. They're correlated.
Okay, I feel like I became a lot smarter and can actually understand what's going on, and I appreciate that. Just out of curiosity, is there any other tech buzzword related to what you do that you wish more people, normal people who are not engineers, would actually understand better?
Well, actually, there is one word that I've been asked a lot about. And currently, I guess it's also debatable. So, a lot of people have asked me if I work with AI and if my projects involve AI. And it really does depend on how you define it. Again, this is like robotics, it's a word that's still being debated on what it actually means. Now, if it's anything that's programmed to achieve something that a human could do, then maybe the answer is yes. But again, it's complicated because if you define AI as actual in learning, I currently haven't developed any project that has, you have to feed it information and then it has to learn from it in order to achieve an outcome. Then in that case, it wouldn't be. I guess a buzzword I hear all the time is AI. And I feel like there's not a clear, it depends on what definition you use.
So if I were to ask you, Maya, do you use AI, then what would your answer be?
In my definition, I think it has a lot, it has mostly to do with machine learning. And I currently do not use machine learning. So I would say I have not used AI to this point.
And just out of curiosity, I'm going off script here, but is there a reason why you're not using AI, machine learning in the wearable robotics and engineering of what you're creating right now?
So I think that up to this point, I haven't found the need to use it. I do think it's an extremely useful tool that I have not actually explored out of need, but I do think it will come very in handy in future projects. So it's definitely on my to-do of things to include, but I haven't found like an actual necessity for it yet.
Okay, that's a very interesting answer. And I'll be curious to tap in maybe 6 months or 1 year because I think AI moves so fast to hear
Yes.
your perspective on this.
I am sure in 6 months I'll tell you a different answer.
I have a gut feeling. Probably. I'm gonna get to the comments real quick because there are people who are joining live. Let's see. Metabee says hello and good day. Are we talking about bat suits? You'll see some of the things that she's doing, which is pretty cool. Chris says kaboom. Safi is joining here from YouTube. Appreciate you for coming through. Peace, Janey and Maya, she says. And I don't know if Connie is here actually, but yes. And then I see Sanjay in here. Okay, the comments, you guys are actually chatting a lot. Is this Safi goes, oh wait, is this the Maya that uploaded her consciousness? No, this is the IRL Maya who is doing some pretty amazing things with wearable robotics. So very excited to go through this. Okay, so let's get into it. So I just want to talk and start a conversation with talking about robotics, fashion, and human expression, which is a lot more your world, I would say, than mine, because I cover it more from the marketing and strategy perspective of the physical and the digital or web 2 and web 3 depending on where you are, or even the AI aspect of it. But what I want to get into is, first of all, what drew you to engineering and then wearable robotics and human augmentation? How did Maya get started in all of this robot meet fashion situation?
Let's go back in time many years ago. I've always been a kid that has been very drawn to anything that had to do with aesthetics, drawing, painting, very artsy skills. That's what I was usually drawn to when I was a child. Also, very detail oriented. So I would enjoy a lot like painting classes, drawing classes, anything craft. That was when I was very young. So I guess my parents always knew I was going to end up doing something with my hands or anything design, because that's what I would naturally gravitate towards. However, I had to move out of Venezuela when I was 13 years old. And I ended up going to middle school in Florida, in the US, in Miami. And this move was pretty shocking for me because I didn't know any English at all. And I was in a school that was all American, no professor spoke Spanish, even though it was in Florida, it was a bit north. So it wasn't in Miami. And it was a struggle for me to understand most of my classes. I remember failing exams because I just didn't understand the questions. So how would I even answer an exam? However, the only classes that I actually got, or got half of it, was anything math or science related. Math for obvious reasons. It was numbers. Spanish and English, it's the same thing. And science was a bit easier for me also because most of the words in biology, in chemistry, in physics usually come from Latin roots. So they did sound familiar, and I was able to figure out, while I didn't know any English, what they were trying to tell me. And again, a lot of numbers related with them. So I started to become more familiar with all my STEM classes, everything related to science, engineering, math. And because I felt like those were the ones that I understood and I was getting better grades at them, then I started falling in love with them more and more as time went by, which was a great thing because when I finished high school, I had to choose what to study. And the truth is, I was really good at anything numbers because that's what I had started developing since middle school. But I also had this passion that I used to gravitate towards, which was anything design or crafty or artsy. So by the time of choosing, I decided to actually go for engineering because I felt that engineering would allow me to be creative and design, but at the same time, it would allow me to explore a bit more the logical side of my brain that had to do a lot with numbers. I actually went to study in Israel. So, the other side of the world. I finished middle school in Miami, and then my parents decided to move to Panama. So, I ended up doing high school in Panama. Yes, I've been everywhere. I finished high school in Panama and I decided to go to study in it. I studied mechanical engineering and I specialized in robotics. I felt like that was a great choice because, yes, it did allow me to learn so many skills. But at the same time, I thought it was going to give me a little bit more of room for creativity and design, and it didn't. And that's when I realized that I actually needed some kind of outlet to develop my design skills. That's why I decided to start working on wearable robotics. I did have some fashion experience at my freshman year. It was COVID. And so I was doing it actually in Miami. So again, traveling all over the world. I did my freshman year in Miami, online Zoom from Israel to Miami. So my classes were at midnight, but it was great because I studied all night. And then I had the whole day where I actually did an internship with a fashion designer, Sharon Ospino, in Miami. And that's where I learned how to sew and I fell in love with the fashion industry. So farther on in my degree, I actually realized that I could somehow combine these two things. I could combine my love for fashion since freshman year and use all the skills that I've learned in the 4 years of my degree. And that's how I ended up in a lab working in wearable robotics.
I'm processing because that's actually a lot.
Yes.
You made me have a flashback because I moved to Korea when I was 5 from the US, and they were doing long division. In America, we were learning how to add. I think I had the opposite approach. And I remember literally getting these stamps where it's like F for fail because I didn't understand the language. Like at least I
Right.
spoke it, but it was different actually being immersed and going to school in that language. And then long division, when you barely even learn how to add, like it was a little bit of a nightmare. But super interesting, your story and your perspective. You've really been in different industries, getting hands-on experience. Like you're not just a tech person wanting to get into fashion. You have some of the fundamentals when it comes to actually creating and producing and sewing garments.
Yes, that experience actually super, super valuable. I did get that internship offer because I decided to take an intro to fashion course in the Institute of Marangoni in Miami. And that's how I met my sewing professor, which was Sharon. And then I got offered that internship in her studio and I could learn a lot more.
Oh, wow. I just had a call with actually someone from that institute. But anyways, that's a whole nother conversation. But you're like literally I've heard about this fashion school, Italian Miami situation a lot over the course of the last month. So it's just interesting that you actually went there. But I wanted to get into, can you speak a little bit about an overview of your work, right? When people think about wearable robotics, maybe they're thinking about wearable tech like a Aura ring or a Garmin watch or even something like this. But we're going to show a video afterwards. But I just wanted to get your perspective of a rundown of what is the work that you do when it comes to wearable robotics.
Okay, so what's a bit hard to explain is that all of these things you've mentioned, watches or like bracelets, these all fall in the category of gadgets or accessories. And what I do is not like that at all. I actually work more towards fabrics and towards actual clothes, flexible and soft things, which is really cool because it doesn't exist in the market. You don't see it in the market as much. And that's what makes it very exciting because there's a lot of room for innovation and creating new things. But how that's exactly how I would describe my work actually. It's just creating smart wearables, but not accessories, just actual clothing.
Yeah. And I think I remember when I first saw your dress in New York, and actually to make it easier, maybe let me do a share screen and we're going to go and we'll have the links for you to all connect with Maya afterwards. But this is her Instagram page. So please do make sure to go and follow her there. But I do want to talk about social content, but I want to talk about your work first. So which video should I show, Maya?
I guess the latest project is the third video that you see right there, but I think the one people
Okay.
like the most is the second video.
All right, fine. We'll go to 4.2 million, which is no small feat. Okay, let's do this one. Okay, in the POV, like what you have text on screen, I built a robotic dress you can control moving your hands. This is pretty crazy. All right, let's just do the other one real quick. And this is the one that we saw in New York City, right?
That's the one from New York City.
Yeah. Yeah, let's talk through when it comes to, ooh, I don't know why my face is very big. That's very uncomfortable right now. Okay, let's go back to normal size. I want to talk about basically how did you, or let me put it this way, like why do you think wearable robotics can change how we dress and we interact with fashion, right? Because we've gone through some of the basic definitions and people can follow you directly, but having a more engaged and thoughtful conversation, how does wearable robotics change the future of fashion?
Actually, that's very interesting because it's one of my research questions right now. And it's actually what I'm trying to figure out. And we're trying to actually understand how it impacts broader populations or people from different areas or different generations, even. But how I think it's gonna impact it is first, I think fashion is great. It does give us the ability to express ourselves and also to protect ourselves from the environment and different factors. But I think it can be used for so much more. And I think it should also express how much we've advanced as a society, especially tech wise. I feel like there's so much room for that. And it can definitely enhance our daily lives. It can definitely help us a lot more. Like our phone helps us. Why not our clothes that we wear every single day do something else to actually make our lives easier or better, prettier, more entertaining? So I do like to focus a lot in that, and I think that's how I see wearable robotics going. But at the same time, I also see it as an opportunity to actually help people understand that technology is not necessarily something that separates people, but rather I want to use it as something that brings people together and helps people interact with each other. So for example, as you saw those two dresses actually that you showed, they both require someone else to interact with the person wearing that garment in order for them to work. So in the first one that you showed, that it was the POV, I can move the dress with my hand, you need someone to stand in front of a certain distance and it can't be that far away. and they actually can play it with whatever the person in front of them is wearing. So there's an interaction between two people. There's a moment of connection and a moment of awe, and usually brings smiles. So that's what I'm trying to create. I'm trying to bring more positive emotions into this world because it's chaotic enough as it is. And then the second dress, which is the blooming flower dress, it activates with a handshake. And there's a lot of meaning behind it, of agreement, of a peace offer, of reaching some kind of agreement in order to achieve peace, which we all need, especially in this world. The way it's done is through having two people come close together, shake their hands, and then you get this beautiful blooming motion from the garment. So that's what I'm trying to achieve, and that's how I see wearable robotics going.
So many different directions that we can go, and I'm sure like myself and the audience, we're all just processing everything that you just said. I wanted to get into one thing that you said of you wanted to bring the sense of joy, peace, agreement. These are emotions into something that is called robotics, right? Or engineering. I'm going to say what I say, but a lot of people may have this consideration or this thought that robotics and engineering is boring and has nothing to do with fashion. And so that's why when I had met you, I just thought it was super interesting what you were building. And you also have a fashion background. So integrating those two, it puts you on a different playing field than a lot of people. We were talking about it earlier, tech people who are doing fashion or fashion people doing tech. It's like having that kind of intersectionality of what you're doing. But how does that emotion come into play? And is this something that you feel challenged by, or other people challenge you when you try to explain that you are finding that emotions or you want to bring joy with wearable robotics?
Actually, I think it comes from you said two things that I wanted to address, but one was that so robotics can seem, I wouldn't say boring, but a bit cold, in the sense that usually the stereotype of people that we have working in robotics tend to be a little bit less communicative. They don't talk as much and they're harder to interact with. And yes, I do see that on a daily basis, and it is hard to communicate sometimes. But again, I think there's hopefully every day more people like me that are a bit more extroverted, trying to actually see where this field can go with having these different personalities. I also think it helps that we see a lot more women in STEM right now, and women are bringing definitely something different into the table. Like the fashion industry has been very female dominated lately, and the fact that there's more women engineers are allowing these new fields to bloom. So that on one side. On the other side, you said something about, let me remember the last thing you said.
About the emotions and bringing it into
Right.
robotics, the happiness, the peace. Sorry, I got very excited and I
Very
was
good.
throwing you all
So
of my thoughts, and you're
actually,
catching them.
it's fine. Actually, I started these projects, and I want to talk to you a little bit about this later. That I actually started all of these projects, these wearable projects, as hobbies. They actually were not part of my job at all. I was doing this in my free time after my actual work hours. And like I've recently learned that they could actually be used for research purposes because they actually don't exist and people haven't actually explored what the emotional implications of these things are. I think the fact that for me it's so important, the emotional level, and like focusing a lot on the impact in emotions for people, is because again, I started this as a hobby because of my emotions. This was my way of dealing with what I was feeling at certain times. So for example, the blooming dress, I actually started developing that idea as a message for the student body on campus, because I've been in an American campus for over a year, and it's been very hectic, especially with all the politics going on in the world. And I could feel the strain in the students, between students, on a daily basis. I had to deal with a lot of protests and a lot of hurtful messages and comments, especially as a student. I was here as an exchange student from Israel, so it did hit like home a lot. And I wanted to send a message of understanding, and that at the end of the day, we all want peace, we all want an agreement, we all want to live next to each other, and we all want to be okay with our neighbors. And my way of expressing that without screaming at anyone was to create my garment where two people had to shake their hands in order to have a white flower representing peace actually bloom. And if the hand of the person wearing that flower is let go of, then the flower will close again. And as long as the two people are keeping their intentions and keeping with what they want, which is their agreement, then everything should work out. That's why I pay so much attention to emotions, because usually that's where my work comes from, my personal emotions.
That's so fascinating, and it's so countercultural because what we talked about before, either this perception of engineering and science being very like in a box or boring or cold or sterile or all these things. You're bringing that kind of like fire, that emotion, the activism, humanitarianism, actually, because the way you describe why you created that dress as this message of peace, it's actually very profound.
I just
Like,
feel like students usually forget about the end goal or like the big picture. And I feel like activism has veered off the way a bit into like just conflict and fighting. I'm like, wait, that's not what we want at the end of the day. That's not what we want. Let's go back to our origin, to our like our morals. What is the big picture here? That's very much an engineering mentality though, of like a lot of reasoning steps in order to get what you want. So that's why I decided to like bring those together.
no, so interesting. I love like hearing about this and just digging into your story. I feel like we could probably have this over a bottle of red wine, which is a whole nother thing. But I'm just trying to figure out, like, I flipped and asked other questions, not necessarily like things that have been on script, but just so, I'm paying attention to what everyone is saying in the audience. There's a lot of comments. But I will just say very quickly, I'm just going to run through. Actually, you met my friend Snap during NFT NYC. He's the one who actually introduced me to you because he said, I love her bag and I think you're going to love it. So we ended up chatting through that. So shout out to Snap. And I love this. So Asafi is a good friend. She also creates music and she's in the tech Web3 crypto space. And yes, we would love to work on something with her because you will be receiving your red carpet reward in the future, and we'll have Maya to create something beautiful for you. But yes, I just want to get to, if anyone has any questions that they like to ask Maya, we'll get to it at the end of the interview. And I'm just going to earmark them as we go. I literally am like an octopus doing multiple things. But yes, please just make sure to drop the questions that you have. I love this. Actually, Safi made another comment here. That's beautiful. Peace and unity as demonstrated by a handshake to sustain the beauty and the joy we all desire. And actually, I like this comment from Chris in terms of a mood ring of fashion and emotions. I've always loved mood rings. I think there could be something fun with that. And then just last bit is Snapchat creating languages through wearable tech. That's what I think about. A lot of interesting comments. So yes, please drop your questions that you have. I am going to move on to the next section. I feel like this is so hard to navigate because I want to ask you, and I've been like rapid fire asking multiple other questions, but just real quick, because we're about the halfway mark, I am going to be dropping a exclusive content part that we're going to film afterwards because I want to dig more into Maya's story. So if you're not already subscribed, then I'm just going to drop the QR code up there. That's the Digital Runway, which actually I think that one I haven't changed yet. It's still with Beehive, and I'm literally porting everything over as of yesterday to Substack. And that's something we should probably talk about if you want to actually write and to share about something because it's a great platform. But just to keep things moving, I want to get into talking about HAPPI Lab and engineering the future when it comes to fashion. I want to get into unpacking a little bit of your current research because as much as you create the wearable fashion, you mix it all together and create this amazing piece of work, you also do research. So can we talk a little bit about what is the HAPPI Lab at Cornell University and what is your focus there?
So, as you mentioned before, HAPPI Lab is actually a short acronym for Human Augmentation in Physical and Perceptual Interactions Lab. It is a mouthful. You're right. It's an academic research lab, and it's at Cornell University. That's in Ithaca, in upstate New York. The lab conducts innovative research in the areas you asked me about: robotics, haptics, human augmentation. And they're interested in the intersection of all these different things. And that's why I work with them, because I feel like it aligns perfectly with what I'm also interested in. Their main focus is designing for humans, things you actually can use in the real world and that people use, not only engineers or robots. I am actually starting my PhD this fall. This for me is like a little work, but I will be officially starting in August this fall.
Yay.
Yes, I'm very excited. I will be focusing on innovative wearable robotic and haptic systems, especially in the intersection between fashion, medical applications, and aerospace exploration. What I'll be focusing on is anything haptics, robotics. There's usually a tactile component to my projects, an element of touch. And that's what I've been working with in the lab and what I'll be continuing during my PhD.
Everything is interconnected, right? The wearable fashion tech, as I like to call it, because I think for wearables to be successful, they need to be fashion. There was a necklace, I don't know if you've seen it. It's called the Friend necklace. I don't even know what the hell happened to it, but it was $99 and they were taking pre-orders. And I was looking at it one day and I was thinking to myself, it really looks like something. And then I realized it looks like an Apple AirTag. So I'm just going to say, when you have tech bros trying to build a fashion item, that's what you get. You need designers or fashion designers who actually understand the aesthetic to create you something beautiful versus just putting tech on a necklace and calling it a day. So, do you find that there are a lot of other people within your sector, or how new is what you're building right now?
Okay, so this, you actually hit all the right points. Yes, tech bros should not be designing things for most consumers. I find this a challenge, but it's also an opportunity where usually engineers do not pay attention, or at least from what I've learned and what I've been taught during my undergraduate degree, engineers focus just on functionality. They don't care how things look in the end. They just care that they work. And that's totally fine and it's totally valid and it's extremely important. However, humans are visual beings and also tactile. So things need to look and feel good. This is actually a term, the look and feel of products. If you're designing for actual humans, not machines or other engineers, things need to look and feel great, especially if other people are purchasing these products. I feel like I always like to use Apple as the best example because they don't necessarily have the best product in the market or the best price in the market for what they offer, but they do offer an amazing look and feel for every single one of their products. And that's mainly why people are willing to pay what they cost, even though there's other options in the market that might be better quality for a lower price. And I think this is a very key aspect. And I think one of the main issues is that we don't see this a lot because engineers rarely talk to designers, which are the ones in charge of making things look good, not making sure they work, but making things be made for other humans. Again, this is a challenge that there's no communication between these two kinds of people, but it's also an opportunity to actually develop these communication skills or these communication channels between the two people. So yes, again, this is what I think is the main issue. But I have definitely found it very challenging, especially when talking to other engineers, trying to explain what I'm doing. But I feel like the fact that I have seen both worlds and I've learned from both worlds actually allows me to understand how each of their brains think, which is also, I think, very important to understand how they each think and then adapt what you're saying to their way of processing information. I do think this is relatively new, as in there's a reason why research is being done on it. Usually we do research on things that are not known yet, which makes it a very new field. I would say probably the first dresses that we've seen with high technology, I wouldn't say robotics yet, have been the probably Iris van Harpen has been one of the first designers to introduce technology into wearables, not necessarily robotics, not the early designs. Yes, the latest designs have been, I think, less than 5 years old that actually have robotics components in them. And they're definitely not like retail products, definitely not on sale. My end goal is to actually have products that can be purchased by regular people for regular use. They are still very delicate. They're still very much prototype because they're still new. So yes, this field is definitely emerging.
Very emerging tech. It's emerging robotics, I would say. And I think as you were speaking, it just made me think it's almost as though learning a language and a culture, right? For yourself, it's the fashion side and the robotics. Even for myself, when I look at it, I'm thinking to myself, okay, I understand fashion, beauty, and retail because I've worked in the business, the retail operating, the marketing strategy side. And now having been in tech, doing digital fashion to Web3, metaverse, digital fashion, augmented reality, AI, all this kind of stuff, of understanding both sides and figuring out the business perspective and being able to share about that. And I think we need people to bridge, because if you can't speak the language and make it make sense for each side, then literally they're walking out of the room or just not interested anymore. But what I did want to get into, and we are definitely not on time for timing because we've gone through different rabbit holes, but I wanted to get into what's your long-term vision? You mentioned about wearable robotics that could be purchased and used by anyone. But when you say that, are you talking about specific needs? Like, for example, for seniors or solving a problem, or is it more red carpet moments, or being able to wear something like a blooming dress to your quinceañera or your wedding or something like that?
So actually in my ideal world, ideal, I'm talking like dreaming hard. I would actually tackle, I call it three branches. Those are the branches that I like. One is the entertainment branch, which you mentioned. That would be from Met Gala to quinceañeras to even gaming. Like the gaming world has a lot to offer with haptics and transferring human touch and sensations from the screen to the real world. That's, for me, that would be an amazing accomplishment. But then there's other two branches that are actually intertwined in a lot of ways, which is the medical and the aerospace exploration field or section, where you have anything from exoskeletons to prostheses to flexible sensors, protective garments. And the reality, or how I see it, is once I was asked a question, why wouldn't you go to Mars? If you were offered to go to Mars, would you go? And my answer
No,
was yes, but I need a better spacesuit.
one that has more functionality. Did
I
you see
want
the
something more.
Prada spacesuits?
I'm sorry?
Did you see the spacesuits that Prada did?
With the moon. Oh,
What did
I did. But I actually
what
don't know if it's functional. Is it functional?
exactly. They don't talk about that. It literally just felt like a luxury fashion flex. Do you know what I mean? Like, you worked in fashion, it was just one of those hype moments saying, "Hey, Prada designed this." But I'm like, what cool wearable fashion tech or robotics is part of it? Do we call Maya? And I'm calling this right now, guys. If you are not following Maya or connecting, you're going to miss out. So make sure to connect with her, because there's a reason why I want to have this conversation with her, because you're really at the forefront of building this. But yes, I agree with you. Sorry, please continue. I had to interject with my space comment.
No, it's fine. It's just that's literally my end goal. I just want to make things that actually work, that are comfortable, but that they're also extremely aesthetic and make people feel good while wearing them. Again, I wouldn't feel comfortable wearing that spacesuit, but I also need something that works and can protect me against the environment. Same thing in the medical industry with exoskeletons and prostheses and helping people with like mobility issues. You also want to have these people feel comfortable with whatever external thing they need to wear, or even help people get dressed or undressed in certain ways. There's people that actually have this issue. Can we create systems of clothing that help these people out, so that have some kind of life to them and that can actually collaborate with humans to help them achieve whatever they want to achieve? That's my main goal.
Did you see Arc'teryx with the robotic leg that they came up with?
What is
I
this?
let me ask you another question, or you can look it up right now as I'm chit-chatting. Are you looking it up?
I can't find it. I don't know
Okay,
what it's
let
spelled.
me pull it up really quick. So while we are waiting for myself, since it's me, I wish I had like my AI agent to be able to do this. But for anyone who is watching, if there is a specific function for wearable fashion tech or robotics, what would you love to see that you haven't seen in the market, but you would be like, oh my goodness, please make this Maya, or somebody who has the capability to? Because I think it's a nice little poll and just interesting to see if there's anything in particular. And let me just share this screen because I just found it. This is amazing. I love this, by the way. The air
I saw.
conditioned dress. This was a while ago. Bear with me as I get down here. And it is, oh, this is the air conditioned dress, which is super amazing, by the way. You have to follow Unreal Age. They did the LED dress this past fashion week.
I saw
And
that.
Arctics go. Sorry, I thought that it pulled up Arctic. Okay, you know what? I'm so sorry. You know what it pulled up? The winter arc ChatGPT prompt that I don't know where the let's see if I can pull it up this way. Otherwise, oh, here we go. Okay. It was under here, I think. I hope so. Oh, here we go. Arctic's robotic pants.
Oh, yes, I know these.
And we're hitting here 5,000 US dollars, shipping late 2025. Arctics, if you're watching, I would love to test these out. I'm not quite sure if I have that liquidity to buy these for 5K, or you can come on the podcast. But have you seen these and what they do?
I've seen something similar. I haven't seen this version. I've seen older versions of this. It's very cool. Again, it's pre-order. So still I don't know if it's out there yet. Probably not if it's late
I don't think so.
2025.
Yeah,
Yes, the price tag is a bit high, but that's normal for new technologies. I feel like that ends up going like down like over time. As more people adopt the technology, it usually goes down. But yes, this is the kind of things that I'm talking about, just with a little bit more flair, a little bit more fashion into it. There's
I
actually,
agree.
I don't remember the name now, but I can find you the name later on and send it to you. There's this girl that I love. She's an influencer and she uses a prosthetic hand. She decided that she wasn't going to use regular prosthetics that look like an actual hand. She was actually going to use prosthetics that look like robotic hands, but with beads and rhinestones and like pink and purple. And she would actually use it as another accessory in her body because
Oh,
she just decided to embrace that she has a fake arm and why not make it a robotic arm and actually use it as another accessory in her outfit. And I was like, this is actually what we're looking for. We want people to feel confident and good with using prosthetics that help them. Some people need them, some people actually would feel better with them, but we want them to feel proud of what they're using because that's the power of the fashion industry, right? It's for you to actually feel confident and for you to uplift your mood. So that's more towards what we're gravitating to.
I love that. And it just reminds me, obviously not in the same level in terms of prosthetics versus something else, but for anyone who may not have a prosthetic and they can't really wrap their head around it, if someone has a cast, you get people to sign the cast, you do a color. That's a simple thing of how do you make something fashionable or tailored to you based on your aesthetic. And I'm just trying to think because we are getting in on time here, but I just want to, I'm thinking about which direction to take us. It's always like a living, eating, breathing process of conversation, Maya. But I did want to get into just very quickly, Meg Ball joined. I think you met her as well in New York. She's an amazing AI artist.
Yes, I did. Hi, Meg.
Yeah, so just wanted to give Meg a shout out. Thanks for joining us. We're going to start wrapping up. We're going to get into a rapid fire segment that I call Closet Confessions. I don't know. I just like these fun little names and these like little get to know you moments because even though, we're talking about business and what you're doing and it's an opportunity to share about you and your process, I think it doesn't have to be boring and stale. Like it needs to be fun. It needs to give the element of Vogue 70 something questions type of vibes, but
Love
not
it.
quite a crazy TikTok type of situation. But if y'all have a question, then please drop it in the comments. I earmarked a few, but if you guys have questions, now is the time to drop it in the comments. All right, we're going to get into the rapid fire closet confessions. One sentence, one word, one liner, zingers. Are you ready for it?
Yes, I'm ready.
Coffee or matcha?
Coffee.
Sorry, I
I
got
hate
so offended.
matcha. I'm sorry.
What?
I'm from Venezuela. We make coffee.
Have you had good matcha?
Have I had what?
Have you had good matcha?
I don't think so. Probably not.
If I ever have the opportunity, we'll have to have matcha together. Yes,
Okay, deal. I'm
I'm
like
definitely.
black coffee, no sugar, no milk kind of girl. Like I actually like coffee.
Oh, me too. I can't drink all day. Like in the morning, it's black coffee for me. Like people are like, is this medicine or is this coffee situation? One wearable you build if nothing stood in your way, money, whatever. Limit.
Iron Woman suit.
This is so beautiful. Oh, very interesting. What would be one aspect that you would build into the design?
I would actually change it a little bit and I would actually make it flexible. I would make it soft. I feel like it's too rigid. That was my critique to Tony Stark. It's that looks very uncomfortable.
Okay, Tony Stark, we're gonna build the Iron Woman suit and it's gonna be soft, flexible, and aesthetic. We're just letting you know. What's your power outfit? Like, what's the thing that you like to wear that makes you feel powerful?
Definitely a suit, heels, and red lipstick.
Okay, yeah, for sure, red lipstick. I'm there with you. I do not want to wear suits anymore, but I get my 20s and 30s in corporate was always black suit,
Love.
heels. Yeah. Favorite tool in your tech stack can be AI, can be robotic, engineering, whatever.
Actually, it's my bamboo 3D printer. I love bamboo 3D printers. They're extremely fast and very accurate, and they always work. Very reliable.
So you do 3D printing too?
Usually all of my designs have some 3D printing. For me, that's like a basic tool in my work, like my everyday work day. Like I 3D print most of the holders for anything, like all electronic components are usually 3D printed.
Interesting. Okay. Who's your style icon?
Carolina Herrera.
Favorite fashion designer?
Iris Van Harpen.
Okay. Who would be a dream brand to collab with or a person?
Person, Iris Van Harpen. Company, Arduino. They make all the microcontrollers and all the electronics, and I actually love them. So Arduino.
Okay, we're gonna put that out there as manifestation and process. I'm just saying. What's one thing that people don't know about you?
I actually hold many documents from many countries, and I have a passport from Romania. People
I'm
usually
kind of
don't
angry with you because you never mentioned Romania in this situation.
know. I actually have a Romanian citizenship because my grandfather is Romanian, and the Venezuelan passport doesn't really work for anything. So I got a European passport. Yes.
Interesting. Okay, because I was wondering where Hirsch comes from.
Yeah, Hershey's all like none of my grandparents are from Venezuela. They're all from Europe, like they're from Poland, Germany, Israel, Romania. So that's why.
Okay, I learned
I'm
something.
second generation Venezuelan. Only my parents and me and my sister.
Okay. Wait, so what languages do you speak then?
I speak English. Spanish is my native language, and I speak English and some Hebrew. Not my best language, but I can manage.
Very impressive. For any monolingual Americans out there, Maya just made us feel like I'm not monolingual, by the way. But yeah, I'm just going to get to the questions real quick, and then we are going to wrap up. Safi asks, can you not program these dresses or remote access them?
Oh yeah, like usually all of these dresses are programmed. Remote accessing, I've never actually tried, but I guess you could. I do believe you need some kind of Bluetooth connection or anything like that, or some kind of like tiny computer like connected to the dresses, which I haven't used yet. But definitely they're all programmed. Like all the sensors have to be programmed.
Okay, super interesting. Yeah, I think Bluetooth definitely there's some opportunity to do something there. But I think as you said, it's robotics is still very early, prototyping and things like that. Chris asked, injury prevention for seniors. Is this something that you've thought about or you're planning on doing?
Okay, so injury prevention, we haven't actually thought about. What I have been considering has been actually once the injury is done. So more towards therapy on the go, using like compression therapy on the go, as in can you like program compression patterns and input them or output them into the person that needs the treatment. So it's more once the person's in pain, how to alleviate the pain, not prevent the pain.
Okay, interesting. Different perspective on things. Okay, on that note, I know we're a little bit over than what we expected. We could probably go on for a couple of hours, but I want to be respectful of your time. So, Maya, thank you so much for joining. Honestly, I had that conversation with you in New York briefly. We had a call and I wanted to get into actually so much more, but we weren't even able to. But I just find your work mind blowing. And then now learning more about the emotional connection of what you're building with wearable robotics is something that's so fascinating that you also have that background. And I'm just like basically telling you how amazing you are. But, anyways, I can't wait to see and to be on this journey with you to see what you build and how you continue to grow. So, thank you again.
Thank you so much for having me, Janey. I really appreciate it. This has been really fun. Again, my first podcast. This has been so much fun.
Okay,
Thank you.
remember me when you get big, okay?
For
I'll
sure, for
remember you
sure.
too. I'm kidding. Where should people follow your work or get in touch if they want to collaborate or anything like that?
The social media that I use, like the socials that I use the most, is for sure Instagram. So you can follow me at Maia Hirsch Lab, and you can DM me. I do prefer email. You can find my email on my Instagram profile is maiahirsch0108@gmail.com. Yes, for collabs, definitely email. If you just want a quick chat, then you can DM me on Instagram.
Amazing. Wait, is your birthday January 8th?
No, it's August 1st. Oh,
Oh,
it's
August
in
8th.
Spanish. Sorry.
No, that's totally fine. No, because my mom's birthday is January 8th, and I was like, oh, okay, maybe that's why we get along.
No, August
Uh,
1st. I have to change it.
no, you're fine. It's okay. Stay true to your Romanian passport. Final thoughts for anyone who is building or curious about learning more across fashion, tech, and robotics?
Two things. One, I think YouTube is your best friend and internet is your best friend for sure. There's a lot of people doing really cool stuff and having a lot of tutorials online. So you can basically learn everything or anything. And the second thing is to never be ashamed to say what you're actually interested in or passionate about. At the beginning, I thought people would see me as crazy because I was an engineer that would dress up for class and actually use heels in a lab and ask about fashion and be always like, oh, it's New York Week. I thought if I said out loud, people would look at me really weird. And at the beginning, yes. But the lesson is at the end of the day, what makes you happy just makes you happy and nobody else has a say on it. So my advice would be to just do it anyways. It doesn't matter what others think.
I love it. You just gave everyone 2 million cents from you having been on this journey. But yeah, make sure to connect with Maya if you want to learn more. And we're going to get into recording this segment quickly because I know we ran a little bit over. So I apologize, Maya. But if you want to learn more about what she actually built that walked the runway in Cornell, which was amazing, I wish I could have gone to join. I'm going to drop that in Substack next week. The edited podcast will go up on Sunday and it'll be available on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple. And make sure to subscribe to the Digital Runway. It's a newsletter for bonus clips, behind the scenes intel, and playbooks when it comes to beauty, fashion, tech, and AI from a marketing strategy POV. So I appreciate all of you for joining, for being a part of the conversation. This was incredibly fun. And yeah, thank you again.